and are comfortable. What you have to do is work through your issues of shame so that you properly value yourself, and you have to work through your issues of self-care so that you don't have to rely totally on another person in order for you to be comfortable. Once you have healed those wounds of your primary symptoms of codependence, you no longer have to fight with your partners for the value and for your own sense of value, for your reality to prevail, and for your needs and wants to be taken care of. In recovery, we learn how to value ourselves from within. We neither look up at somebody or look down on somebody. We also learn how to own the nature of our reality, which helps us deal with our world. And we learn how to take care of our issues of needing and wanting. And so that when we go into relationships, we go into it from a position of healing, from a position of worth. We walk into a relationship loving ourselves. We walk into a relationship knowing who we are. We walk into a relationship knowing how to take care of ourselves. And when we can't take care of ourselves, we not only can ask our partners for help and support, but we can ask many other people, because we have many other people in our life who can do that for us, so we're in balance. So that we're not too needy as we enter relationships. We're not too wanting as we enter relationships. We're not too devoid of our own sense of reality. We're not devoid of our own sense of value, so we don't have to struggle with our partners to have them sacrifice those issues for themselves so we can have it from them. If you watch power struggles in relationships, if you watch dysfunctional relationships and boil it down and look at what's really going on, what's happening is that people are struggling over power issues so that they can feel valuable and safe. And one of the things they struggle with happens to be around money, because people know when they have money they get power. This is something women have never learned. We're just learning it now, that who makes the money gets to control and have power and have value. Did you notice that? This is how money gets dragged into this situation, or abundance. Whoever creates abundance in relationships gets the power and gets the value. So that's the third dynamic here. How you heal that wound is not really through the self-valuing, and not really from owning your own reality. It's from learning how to take care of yourself and being responsible for what? Well, going back on that other sheet, which I don't want to... Learning how to be responsible for your own finances is what stops the power struggles on that level. Pat and I don't have to fight about money anymore. Ask Marion. We discuss that every time I go down there. We don't have to fight about money because I take responsibility for making my end of the bargain. He takes responsibility for making his end of the bargain. When I need to, what I'm doing with what I'm doing is none of his business. And vice versa. We take responsibility for generating that abundance ourselves, and we don't have to fight about money as a way to have power or value in a relationship or having our reality prevail. Because we each take responsibility for creating that abundance, so we don't have to fight about it. I have a shame-want bind, though. I still have a shame-want bind. And so that when I'm getting something I want and it costs money and I'm operating outside of Pat's values. What does that mean? Well, I'm getting something that he thinks is stupid. Never marry somebody whose values are different than yours. Unless you just want to have a lot of intensity. We have very different values. He values old cars. I value new ones. Or another way to say this is he values old Mercedes, and I value things that are a little newer than that. And anyway, so what happens is that when I have something I value that he devalues because he doesn't value it, that's all that means, and I want to get it, and I have to spend money to get it, and he wrinkles his nose about, my God, getting that. I have a tendency to have a shame attack, and then not, in order to avoid the shame attack, not get what I want, because I know I'm going to have to face him doing that on the other end of the line. You know what I mean? Let's see if I can think of a current thing that just happened with that sort of thing. Usually it has to do with, we're having a fight over furniture. I told you that to straighten out relationship, we built a bigger house. Well, another thing we have to do is put furniture in that. Now, Pat values, he'll probably hate me for saying this. This is what I think. I think it's right because I confronted him the other day on the decking with this, and he started laughing real hard, so I think I nailed him. He values well, what do you call it? Where do you send your old furniture when you want to get rid of it? He values Salvation Army type furniture. I value barrels. Can you see we have a conflict? He wants sturdy. And he doesn't necessarily care what it looks like. He wants his dogs to be able to sit on it. So who cares what the thing looks like? It just needs to be sturdy so the dogs don't tear it up. And he can sit down on it with his oily pants and not have to worry about getting grease stains on it. I want white couches. I don't want the dogs on the couches, and I don't want his greasy jeans on the couches either. I want to go to Barrels and get a stark white couch because it looks good in the living room, and I like to sit in the chair and look at how nice it looks. He doesn't care about any of that. He doesn't value any of that. He wants early American Salvation Army so he can be comfortable. And I want Barrels so I can be comfortable because it makes me feel good to sit in a house that looks like it's come out of Bitter Homes and Gardens. Do you think we're going to have conflict? We have. I remember I got a friend of mine, Jeannie Beal, came and she's an interior decorator, and she came to tell me about how we could fix our house. While she was telling us about how we could fix the house, I noticed Pat just steaming, and when she left, he walked up to me in a huff and said, I want you to know if you do that to this house, I'm going to live in the garage. In fact, right now, I'm going to go out in the garage and see how I can put air conditioning in that, because I know that's where I'm going to live if you do that. What are we in? We're in a values conflict and a power struggle about whose reality is going to prevail. Now, that's normal when you live with someone whose values conflict with you. There's only one way out of that, and it's called compromise. But how can you compromise if you feel as though when you're going to surrender your reality that you're going to lose and have your value drop and have a sense of your abundance dropping at the same time? You can't compromise. Have you ever noticed that it's a life and death struggle about what color the couch is going to be? Has that ever occurred to you that that is ridiculous and that normal, mature people don't get into that kind of struggle in the first place? They just compromise. If he wants white and you want red, you get orange or something like that, or a pink one. You don't get into those life and death struggles because that's what you're really struggling over, the value, the power, and the abundance. Because you don't have that inherent value. You can't claim your own reality. You don't know how to take care of yourself, and you're constantly trying to get that from the other person. They're constantly trying to hang on to their own and get it from you because neither one of you are mature people. And you get into those struggles which create great chaos in relationship. What's the underlying problem? The issue of shame. And the shame binds you have to your issues around self-care and self-valuing. Most relationship issues are a terrible struggle. Facing your partner and trying to get them to give you the value and give you the abundance so you can feel safe. Because both of you come from a position of defectiveness. And the culprit is the carried shame. In relationships, we keep these power struggles going by doing these things. This is what keeps the fight and the struggle going. We blame others for the distress in a relationship instead of looking at, hey, there's a problem here, how can we solve it? The first thing we do when a problem marches into our relationship is we assign blame. We figure out who's right or wrong. Why do we want to do that? If we can figure out that the other person is wrong, and of course they always are. Have you ever noticed that, how big your other finger is? And how you're about doing that to your partner? My mind just thinks that I still do it, even though I know it's really in my disease when I do it. I'm always about blaming Pat for absolutely everything, things he has nothing to do about. My mind can scoot around, so I'm always blaming him. That's so that I can rise up and he can be down and I can feel okay. It's terrible. The big blame. The second thing we do is we're always about keeping score on our partner. When they confront us with our poop, we keep score. We keep a long score. Way back. So today when they confront us with our reality, we can tell them how they did it 40 times last week. Therefore, we don't have to deal with it. Right? Have you ever noticed that? Your partner says you left the window open, 3 times this week, we lost heat and the energy bill is going up. And you say, well, you did that 40 times last month, last week, last year, 10 years ago. I counted. You have done that exactly 495.0005 times. I've only done it 2. It's your problem, not mine. That's called keeping score. So you don't have to face the reality of your impact of who you are. Third thing we do in this incessant power struggle is that we argue data to see whose reality will prevail. What happens in relationships, of course, is that everybody has differing reality, don't they? Yeah, have you ever noticed that? that facts are different, that you see facts different than your mate? And of course you know yours is reality. You know what the truth is? Probably neither of you know what actuality is. All you know is what your perception is. That usually has nothing to do with facts or actuality. It's just your perception. And then we try to argue our mates into having our perception instead of honoring the fact that they have their own. And isn't that interesting? And that's what's going on with them, and making them feel loved by recognizing that and supporting them and having it. And when it conflicts with yours, just letting them know it conflicts and letting it go. We get into arguing data and try to have our reality prevail so that we can feel safe and we can have the power, we can have the value, and we can have the abundance. It's all crazy. And the fourth thing we do is that when all else fails and we feel ourselves losing the power struggle, guess what we always know we can do? Abandon our mate. You know, we can always do that as a way of getting even and maintaining the sense of power. We can threaten abandonment, or we can actually abandon them so that we can finally win this terrible power struggle. The power struggle, again, is about who's going to have the value. Not really who's going to have the power, but who's going to have the value. It's a terrible thing, and that's how this issue of shame affects relationships. Of course, the question is, well, in recovery, you know, what do normal people do? In recovery, what are we supposed to be doing? Well, basically, recovery is about facing our issues of maturity, facing our shame binds, working through them, learning how to value ourselves appropriately. When we're the kind of people that ride in the one-up position through perfectionism and judgment, we learn not to engage perfectionism, we learn not to be judgmental, and we learn not to look down on others. We're in the one-down position, we learn how to value ourselves appropriately so that both of us can look equally in another's eyes and know we have equal value. And when we lack shame, we learn how to experience shame so that we can set limits on our reality. So that when we enter relationships, we enter it with a sense of love on board and the ability to love the other person. The other thing we have to do is we have to learn to take care of ourselves. So that in the relationship, we don't have to absolutely have that other person supporting these issues for us, that we can support those for ourselves. We're valuing ourselves, we're bringing abundance into our life so we have our own power because we can make choices. It's in making choices that we get our true sense of power. It's in knowing deep within our hearts that we have value, that we have value. It's in making choices that we have power, and it's doing hard work that we have abundance. Adults take responsibility for doing all three of those things for ourselves. Where shame is bound to this issue of abundance, you will never have it. Where shame is bound to your value, you will never have it. When shame is bound to your reality, you don't have choices. All these things are eliminated, and in a very screwball way. We try to fight with another person in order to have that instead of learning how to generate it within by our own issues of self-valuing and self-care. This works, I will tell you that. I entered my relationship with Pat in a very, from a position of a lot of felt sense of defectiveness. And guess what? The relationship didn't work because I was trying to get him to value me more than I was willing to value me. I was trying to get him to take care of me more than I was willing to take care of myself. In recovery, I had to stop all that. I had to learn to break all my shame binds so that I was free to value myself, protect myself, own the nature of who I was so that I knew what my needs and wants were, learned how to take care of my needs and wants, and now I noticed something very interesting has happened in my relationship with Pat. He's changed. What I can tell you about that is he has not changed. I changed. And as I changed, I began to see him differently. You see, now, when we get into values conflict, or we get into reality conflict, you know, what I can see is that that's Pat going on, and this is me going on. And I don't have to get the two mixed up. I can just keep making my own choices, keep valuing myself, keep taking care of myself. I can look at Pat and see that he's getting upset with me because I'm having this reality, I am buying these things or whatever I'm doing. And I can let him be upset as he wants to, as long as I'm not offending him. I will continue to do what I need to do over here to take care of myself. And I will also be able to appreciate and love him for who he is, because who he is doesn't affect me that much because I am in charge of my life. I am generating my own abundance. I am generating my own value. I am generating my own sense of power. I don't have to take it from him. I don't need him to give it to me. Therefore, we don't have to engage in all these power struggles anymore. Now, I'll tell you what. Most of the time, we don't blame each other. We just notice a problem and recognize it and deal with it and go on. We don't engage in that blaming anymore. We try not to keep score on each other. We don't argue facts. That's probably the greatest relief. When we notice we have conflicting reality and we notice neither one of us are going to change, we just stop talking. We change the subject and talk about something else and go on about our business. The other thing that's happened is I like him a lot better. And again, he hasn't changed. I like him a lot better because I like me a lot better. And I don't have to have him be a certain way in order for me to be comfortable any longer. I can just appreciate him for what he is. And what I'm discovering is he's quite a hoot, even if we do have conflicting values. And nothing is about him changing. Although he has changed because he's in his own recovery and he's done a lot of changing as he's needed to change. But really, most of what has made me comfortable with him has nothing to do with him. It has to do with me becoming comfortable with me. It has nothing to do with him. Because I know no matter what, I can now take care of me. I don't have to rely on him to do that. I can value me. I don't have to rely on him to value me anymore. I can take ownership of who I am. I don't have to have him tell me who I am. I don't rely on him for those things anymore. I don't rely on him for my value, for my power, or for my abundance. That allows me to love him and not engage in these terrible power struggles. And that's all I have to tell you tonight. I hope you all got it. Thank you for coming.